Are you living with pain? I was, after a nasty fall. I got relief with 1 Hour Pain Relief. I'm Barry Yarkoni, president, and here's Lisa, a Marine who was injured in Iraq.
After surviving an explosion, I was on horrible painkillers for lingering head, shoulder, back, and knee pain. But I hated the dangers and side effects. My friend told me about 1 Hour Pain Relief, and now I'm off the drugs.
1 Hour Pain Relief is the result of 15 years of research on an amazing extract from hops, the plant used to flavor beer.
Whether your pain is from an injury or just aging, you get safe, all-day relief in less than 1 hour.
We're so sure you'll love 1 Hour Pain Relief too that we'll send you a 1-week trial for just a small shipping charge. Call 800-269-9500 right now. That's 800-269-9500. There's no gimmicks, no obligation, no automatic shipments. Stop living with pain. Call 800-269-9500 for your 1-week trial or visit onehourpainrelief.com. That's 800-269-9500.
I'm Rich Rosario. 1 in 4 heart attack survivors will have another cardiovascular event. Award-winning author and American Heart Association volunteer Dr. Nisa Goldberg explains the hidden risks.
Many people don't realize that managing hidden risks like untreated high blood pressure, unhealthy eating habits, and poor medication adherence may reduce your risk for having another heart attack.
The American Heart Association's Secondary Heart Attack Prevention Initiative, sponsored by Bayer, reminds you to follow your doctor's recommendations to help reduce your risk factors.
Take your medication as prescribed. Certain medicines like aspirin can lower your risk of another cardiac event. Aspirin is not appropriate for everyone, so be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen. It's important to understand your medications and take them correctly. Manage risk factors like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. Quit smoking, eat healthier, and get active.
Learn more ways to thrive after a heart attack at heart.org/oneisenough.
This is the Jeff Santos Show on the Revolution Radio Network. Rebuilding America together, investing, activism, and supporting the middle class. Now, here's Jeff.
Thank you, G-Man, and good afternoon, Americans, and welcome to the Jeff Santos Show. Not really a good afternoon after a horrific night last night. I have a lot to say about this. Just let me quickly tell you, the lineup today is John Nichols, who was in Wisconsin last night. Of course, he lives there. And Madison was with us yesterday as our last guest. He'll be our first guest at 3:33 Eastern Time. We'll talk to Harold Meyerson, a great progressive journalist, a labor writer as well. He will be with us coming up at 4:06. Then at 4:30, we'll talk foreign policy because obviously that's going to have an impact too with Brian Garvey and Larry Korb. Of course, Brian is the deputy director of the great Massachusetts Peace Action. Larry Korb, former Navy captain and no longer, by the way, with Center for American Progress. He is, of course, the former Reagan Deputy Defense Secretary as well, and former Navy captain in Vietnam. We should never forget that, too. Phone number remains the same, 833-545-5333. Had a chance to talk to a couple of you who are regular callers to the show. Some I haven't. This is a very difficult time. I haven't been on the air in a more difficult window of time. I mean, 2010, when the Democrats lost the House, and if it wasn't for the Wicked Witch of Delaware, we would have lost the Senate too, after a remarkable and ecstatic 2008, which was nirvana. But there are a lot of reasons for it. I'm going to give you my opinion of it. I know Ms. Harris is going to give her concession speech. I think the first and foremost thing is to sort of realize, and this is linked to the reality of our society, America, as currently constituted, with no popular vote, like every other democracy in the country in the world has. And very little media that is progressive, that is open-minded, that tells the truth about a convicted felon and a rapist, and not push that to the side and just use this as an ordinary presidential race. Frankly, the American people are not ready to elect a woman, particularly a woman of color. That is the conclusion. Back in 2020, a white man named Joe Biden ended up with 81 million votes. Won those swing states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, where he did grow up in Scranton, but lived most of his life in Delaware. You had a situation where President Joe Biden, against the wishes of a lot of people, decided to stay in much too long. If he would have repeated another great domestic president, horrible on foreign policy, Lyndon Johnson, of course, led us into Vietnam and destroyed the entire New Deal in the process. If he left like our friend LBJ did in February or January, ideally, or even after the 2022 elections, frankly. Everybody, Simon Rosenthal guy, and, everything is Shangri-La, said that, we're better off. Look, we're not going to have a red wave. So because the Republicans took over the House, which stopped all the good legislation that we had produced in the first 2 years, in 2021 and 22, the American Rescue Plan worked on very closely with Bernie Sanders and Jayapal. In 22, we also had the IRA plan, which is built off Build Back Better. It was a stupid name, by the way, of the IRA. I mean, people think of the Irish Republican Army or your IRA, pension, if you might. So it was a bad name. So how do you sell it? So you don't sell it because the stupidity. And again, let me just say this, because Joe Biden is a good man. I've met him. I interviewed him way before he was president. He's a decent man. But you get into power and family tries to back him. Should have got out. It put Harris and the team that was put together, which did a remarkable job in 3 months, really behind the eight ball. And, considering the fact that you have a woman of color running without progressive talk radio in pretty much only maybe 1 or 2 states in the country, Oregon, Wisconsin. Wisconsin, of course, was a disaster last night. Tammy Baldwin won, so I guess that's a little bit of good news. We're still going to lose the Senate. Maybe Slotkin will win and we can get to 46-47 with Sanders and King and Angus King in Maine. But this is a disaster. And in order for the Democrats to come back, they are going to have to, and this is self-serving, yes, I'll be the first to say it. I'll give you an example of this. The Democratic Party, not all of them, doesn't understand how to communicate with the working class. They don't understand how to use talk radio. I was just listening to one of the few people on the air today, and Tom Hartman. They were talking about, what happened with Reagan, and then what happened with Clinton, the Telecommunications Act, and allowed billionaires like Rupert Murdoch and others to come in and buy all these stations. Clear Channel now, iHeart, do whatever they want. They destroyed Air America, did iHeart, their previous name of the company, Clear Channel. So what we have is a lack. It's not that the country is innate racist or innate sexist. But in many parts of the country, if they have a choice between a white man, even though the man is a convicted rapist and convicted criminal, doesn't make a difference. Now, let me also say this. My profession, media. It's the Washington Post. I'll give Hartman credit for this. Do they lead with rapist wins White House? No. They even have the cojones to endorse Miss Harris, who was far and away much better candidate for president than the former rapist, should be in jail. Look, I don't know how long I'm going to be at this microphone because we don't have it set up yet. Maybe we will. I would love to be part of it. But we can't do this independently. It just costs too much. I had an opportunity, thanks to some of the people we work with and our production team and some radio brokers, and I offered this to the Democratic Party, to the people in Pittsburgh, to Senator Bob Casey's office, people in Pennsylvania. We had 3 stations in Pennsylvania, 2 in Philadelphia, 1 an African-American station, 1 a general talk station that I've been on in the past, and 1 in Pittsburgh. We also had 1 in Detroit. Do you know I could not get anybody from the White House, the campaign, to help me at all? I couldn't even get a return email. You cannot tell me that if we were in Pennsylvania in 2 different stations in Philly, which of course you needed to reach more and more African Americans and more people in Allentown and all the collar suburbs, which she did well, but not well enough under Biden to talk to people. Wouldn't have helped. Same thing in Pittsburgh. No, it's like, oh, we're just going to do the internet stuff. We're just going to go out there and put a lot more money. The $1 billion that we're raised, we're going to put it into 30 and 60-second spots. Hopefully over the next couple of days, I'm still around, we'll get a chance to talk to people from Jerry Austin, who ran campaigns and did a lot of 30 and 60-second spots. But he also realizes that you need to have earned media. You need to be able to amplify. How many times have I used that word over the last few weeks? Yeah, I'm angry. Yeah, I'm frustrated and sad and depressed, I guess, temporarily. You can't just, be that way for any amount of time, or drive yourself, to a place you don't want to be. But I know many of you feel that way. I'm going to open up the phones in a couple of minutes at 833-545-5333. And if you want to go ahead and email me, that's fine too, Jeff with a J at revolutionboston.com. I'm sick and tired of people saying, oh, Jeff, you're too left. You can't talk to these people. Well, let me just tell you this. If I was given an opportunity, when I substituted for Red Schultz, he picked me. I talked to people from all over the country. He was in 90 markets. He would know I was there for over a year. If I wasn't that good, he would have picked somebody else. All I'm telling you is that you can't amplify a governor or a senator if every day the right wing is bashing locally here in Massachusetts, in southern New England. You can't do it because there's our good friend Sam Polton at WCAP, thank God for people like him who would give a voice like mine a chance. He can't do it on his own. He's a small independent. He's competing against mega corporations. It's impossible to change people. Look at the map. South of Fairfax, Loudoun County, and so forth. I think Loudoun County actually went to Trump. You ended up with a situation where the entire South, not surprising, low information voters, a history of racism, not saying that everybody in the South is racist. That's not true. There's a lot of votes there, a lot of African Americans. It came close in Georgia. By the way, what happened to the coverage outside of Greg Palast talking to us about the bomb threats, talking to us about the small African Americans? Didn't hear any of it on CNN or MSNBC. Oh, they're concerned about the race, the horse race. Fairness to MSNBC, I think Rachel Maddow mentioned it. But she was more concerned about making sure people didn't realize that the bomb threats were actually real bombs going off. I understand you don't want to cause panic, but the threat of it is there. And it had ties, according to one official, to Russia. So, look, she lost by, Harris did, by a couple of points. Again, Biden won it last time. A Caribbean American woman, person of color, Indian American mom. I don't know, but I think we need massive change to how we promote the Democratic Party. Look, as you know, I'm a Bernie Sanders guy. I would love him to be president. I just don't think that the country is ready for him either. I don't even know if the Democratic Party is ready for him. I think in a lot of ways we should look at somebody like Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear. And I say that because I think it's important to get, frankly, a white male who's got a background as a governor. His father was very good on the Affordable Care Act, which, again, could be better. But at least we have some foundation, and you build off of that. Now, all the things that we have to do, and we're not going to do them now. I mean, the Democrats maybe could win the House, but you're not going to get anything accomplished. It won't make it through the Senate, and Trump will veto it. But you need to get rid of the Electoral College. Lawrence O'Donnell said it last night, and I think he was very, very good on this. He said, if people in California knew that their vote really mattered, several million people, again, I think it's like 71 to 66 million are the numbers now. When, we'll confirm that later, but it's in that range. And frankly, if we had a white candidate, a man, maybe we could have won. Now, Biden should have, I said, he didn't have the capability. And another thing, and we'll open up the phones here, that's important. You got to be able to talk to people who are Latinos, who, by the way, 54% of Hispanics voted for Trump. And if that is not a communication problem, I don't know what is. Many of those folks are potentially going to be deported or going to know people who are related to them. Obviously, these are citizens because you have to be a citizen to vote. Of course, Republicans won't tell you that. But you got to be able to communicate to working class whites, particularly men. You got to do it all around the country. In New York, and we're going to go to our good friend John, who grew up in Long Island. In Passaic, New Jersey, Trump won that. This is what we have done is we have basically said we're not going to talk to anybody. Even we know that in the South it's much difficult because of the history of racism there and sexism. But let me just tell you, Pennsylvania is in the Northeast. Do you know they've never won with a woman statewide, not senator, not governor, not AG, and now not president twice, Hillary and Harris. and they never had an African American black person also the same way. So it should have been real. I said it a couple of times. I don't want it to be right, so I didn't emphasize it. But that's where we are. We need to change all of this. And we can't do it overnight. I hope I can be part of the information team to do it. All right, with that, let's go to John in Minnesota. Start us off, then we'll try to get Tom in before the bottom of the hour. We'll talk to John Nichols. John, you're first. How was your night?
Well, it was pretty bad. I was very depressed, of course. And, all of what you say is very true. I would say that even more than getting money out of politics is getting the message out about politics and about what, to create the conditions for a continuation of the New Deal. What we're going to experience now is the raw deal. And this is the establishment, I think, of the corporate state. It'll be a fascist regime similar to Argentina. He's made promises of how he's going to go after people, and I believe him. It's possible that we could see a lot of violence. And unfortunately, it's not just this country that is affected by, what's happened here. We're the wealthiest country in the world, and they'll take the lead. And this will influence politics throughout the Western world. And we're going to see more and more war. We're going to see more and more corporate interference in our lives. We won't have safe food to eat. We won't have drugs that are actually what they say they are. This is what's going to happen. And I don't understand why it is that people will put their faith in a serial rapist, misogynist. And yes, he is awful, but you know what? That wasn't enough. And as Ralph Nader said, you have to get the working class to understand that it's important to even vote. They were left out of this, and you've mentioned that there have been less people that voted this time around than before. So the message did not get out, despite all of the hard work that people had. And this is not necessarily because of the Republican Party. This is because of the Democratic Party. And we've talked about this over the years, from the time that Biden was elected. What kind of Democratic Party is he going to form? In certain places, apparently they get the idea of what a real democracy would look like in the 5th district of Minnesota with Ilhan Omar or Bernie Sanders or Ocasio-Cortez or any of these people. Well, who do they ignore in the Democratic Party? All of these people, as if they don't matter.
Let me also say one thing, too, about Biden. I want to give you some more time. As a matter of fact, G-Man, what we're going to do here, John is going to finish the hour here before we go to break, a half hour. And then I'm going to go to Tom before we get to John Nichols. So if you want to call John 5 minutes after, John Nichols, that is, just to be not confused. But I just want to say one thing, John. I'll let you continue, John D. Thank you, G-Man. The fact is this. They made a concerted effort, did the horrific messaging people within the Biden operation. I hope none of them ever have any jobs at all within the next Democratic administration. They purposely said, we want to keep Trump, we want to keep Biden away from the camera. So they would do these 2:00 in the afternoon press conferences. And you cannot amplify your message if you're not going to have Biden go on shows like mine or Tom Hartman or whomever. If you're not going to do that, you're not going to send Harris out there, then what are you doing? You're allowing you're allowing the other side to have the platform. Oh, we don't want to have him overbearing like Trump was on TV all the time. Well, that's how we talk to people. Go ahead, finish your thoughts, John.
Oh, me?
Go ahead, John. Yeah, you.
I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And, we need to change the party. We need to completely revise how we approach politics, how we reach people, how we make a consensus, all of that. And we know what to do. We've talked about it. Harvey K's talked about it. You've talked about it. PDA's talked about it. Alan Minsky. Over the years, we talked about this all the time.
I know. Hang in there, John. Hang in there, my friend. We got to go to the commercial break, but we'll talk to you in the next couple hours. We're right back. Nichols is next. Actually, Tom is next from L.A., then Nichols.
Haul packages for a living? A gas-powered Mercedes-Benz Sprinter delivers. Transport people? A Sprinter van with 0% financing is a 5-star idea. If food delivery is your thing, then a gas Sprinter caters to you. And if you're a general contractor, the Sprinter with 0% financing nails it. With innovation, safety, and technology, Sprinter is built for you. And it's built for your bottom line with 0% financing. The Mercedes-Benz Sprinter, starting at just $33,790.
You don't have to wait for amazing deals on a new floor. Get spring Black Friday deals right now at Lumber Liquidators Flooring. This week, save up to 35% on gorgeous hardwood and waterproof vinyl floors. Plus, we can arrange for installation by professional, independent contractors. And with special financing, you can get started today. These are the floors homes are built on. Lumber Liquidators Flooring.
Are you living with pain? I was, after a nasty fall. I got relief with 1 hour pain relief. I'm Barry Yarkoni, president, and here's Lisa, a Marine who was injured in Iraq.
After surviving an explosion, I was on horrible painkillers for lingering head, shoulder, back, and knee pain. But I hated the dangers and side effects. My friend told me about 1 hour pain relief, and now I'm off the drugs.
1 hour pain relief is the result of 15 years of research on an amazing extract from hops, the plant used to flavor beer.
Whether your pain is from an injury or just aging, you get safe, all-day relief in less than 1 hour.
We're so sure you'll love 1 hour pain relief too that we'll send you a 1-week trial for just a small shipping charge. Call 800-269-9500 right now. That's 800-269-9500. There's no gimmicks, no obligation, no automatic shipments. Stop living with pain. Call 800-269-9500 for your 1-week trial or visit onehourpainrelief.com. That's 800-269-9500.
I'm Rich Rosario. 1 in 4 heart attack survivors will have another cardiovascular event. Award-winning author and American Heart Association volunteer Dr. Nisa Goldberg explains the hidden risks.
Many people don't realize that managing hidden risks like untreated high blood pressure, unhealthy eating habits, and poor medication adherence may reduce your risk for having another heart attack.
The American Heart Association's Secondary Heart Attack Prevention Initiative, sponsored by Bayer, reminds you to follow your doctor's recommendations to help reduce your risk factors.
Take your medication as prescribed. Certain medicines like aspirin can lower your risk of another cardiac event. Aspirin is not appropriate for everyone, so be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen. It's important to understand your medications and take them correctly. Manage risk factors like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. Quit smoking, eat healthier, and get active.
Learn more ways to thrive after a heart attack at heart.org/oneisenough.
Supporting the middle class. This is the Jeff Santos Show.
"33 minutes past the hour. It is the Jeff Santos Show that you are tuned into, coming to you live from the South Coast. Here on the day after election 2024. Boy, we had so much enthusiasm yesterday. So many different people in all the states. And all about 10 o'clock at night just became melting lava. I know so many of you are depressed today, as I said, and I urge you to sort of do whatever it is that gets you a little bit more happier, calling this show is a good thing, then go ahead and do that. In fact, let's go to LA right now and talk to our good friend Tom. I know this is a tough day for you, Tom. Your thoughts? Go right ahead. Tom still there? Hello, Tom? G-Man, did we lose him? Okay.
Jeff.
How you doing, Tom? Go right ahead, my friend. Tom, can you hear me? I can. Go ahead.
Okay. What I learned about last night's election, the voters of last night do not like people who speak out about policy or programs. They do not like women candidates.
That's for sure.
They do not like the intelligentsia, and they're victims of the right-wing propaganda. They don't want someone who's thoughtful or educated. They want someone who just reacts, shoots from the hip, and is an Al Bundy figure or reality show WWF or UFC jughead. They like their straight, white, Anglo-Saxon Protestant men who is their bro and who doesn't speak intelligently or academically because the professors and other academia are the enemy. Just like in the 1930s when they went after the professors and the intelligentsia.
Right.
They don't like smart women because they're so scared of them. Kamala Harris was an incredible candidate, but America still wants Joe Dad Bod to be the one who runs the country. We need another candidate like Bill Clinton, white, straight, scoundrel, a bubba, who is intelligent, but can be the regular guy and speak to the average person. Donald Trump now is going to be great at saying the same thing over and over again, whether it's true or not. In fact, when he gets into office, Trump will say every single day that the economy is great. It's never been greater, and he is the greatest thing ever.
Right.
And because of him,
just a couple of things. I don't want to go back down the road of Bill Clinton, and I'll tell you why. Because Bill Clinton was rolled by the Republicans that gave us the Telecommunications Act, that gave us NAFTA. Let's not go back.
No. I agree with you. I'm not saying a Bill.
But I will agree. I don't know if you heard me, Tom. But let me just make this clear. I'm all for Andy Bashir. You know, maybe just as conservative as Bill Clinton, but I think you can form and shape him. And the reason is that a white male, white straight male, Anglo-Saxon, as you say, you know, he could be Catholic. Biden was. But don't forget, Biden was also during a pandemic. I don't know if Biden wins if it's not a pandemic. I don't know, frankly, if Obama wins in 2008, if he didn't have a recession that was almost as bad as the Depression, and at the same time, lied us into war, where 4,000 Americans, I don't know how many people who were injured from that. So to your point and to what I was saying is we have to get somebody who is accepted by what they look like, and then you got to add on, it's sort of like this is your foundation of your salad, and then you add on all the good things. But you got to do it slowly, and you have to have people to communicate it. If you don't have people on the air every day like the right wing does, then you can't tell people, you know, who this
Jeff,
person is.
That's my point.
I got about a minute because I got to bring in John Nichols, but go ahead.
Yep. And that is exactly my point, is that you can't just show up 6 months before an election and throw all the stuff out there. You have to have an actual message every single day. The problem is, on the Republican side, all they do is repeat same talking points all the time. And on the progressive side, we actually talk. We actually communicate. We actually talk about these things, which may not be as exciting or as hate-filled as the right wing does. The electoral and Fox will repeat that same thing every single day, and MSNBC will repeat it. They'll just let Donald Trump speak about having a great economy. The Electoral College depresses the voters in New York and California.
Yep.
They do not know how to communicate with the average person. And
Tom,
this
I'd
started in
love to hear you
Wisconsin.
back, but I got to get to John Nichols. A great call, and I agree 100%. And again, kudos to O'Donnell last night for mentioning that. 7 million people in New York, 7 million people in California, and all of a sudden you have a different outcome if it's just a popular vote. John Nichols is with us. John is our longest-serving contributor. He gets all this. He understands the importance of media. He understands the importance of communicating the message. He joins us. Last guy we talked to last night, first guy guest-wise we talked to today. John, thank you for being with us. This is a horrific night, whether you're a progressive, a moderate, a Democrat, even a moderate Republican. What say you, sir? What's your feelings?
Sure. Look, it was a pretty rough night. There's simply no question of that. And here's my sense on it. We saw some of this coming. He acknowledged. You and I talked on this show about how, in many ways, we were impressed with the Harris campaign and the way that she hit the ground running, I think, pretty effectively after Joe Biden stood down. But we also talked a lot about the need to emphasize economic issues, to emphasize concerns about Trump on his approach to trade policies, which has been very destructive for unions, his anti-labor stances, his failure to commit to raising the minimum wage, in fact, his historic opposition to it, and just a host of other economic issues. My sense is that was a much bigger factor even than we knew, even though we were talking about it. And so that's one thing.
That's a good point.
It's a serious issue too, because it looks like, here's the one thing that's weird. In the analysis a lot of media is doing, they're saying, oh, well, young men kind of shifted over toward Trump. And they're thinking, well, maybe that's because of Joe Rogan. Maybe that's because of, something else, blah, 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 blah. One thing they might want to think about is maybe it's because young men didn't hear an economic message, right?
Amen.
That would relate to them. Because if you're a young man coming up, be you black, white, Latino, Asian American, whatever your background, right? Wherever you live, whatever your region, you're worried about how you're going to fit into this world. And a lot of that worry relates to economics. And so
and I want to stop you there, John, because I think this is an important time. I talked about a lot of things with our callers and my open today. But one thing I didn't mention is that, and give James Carville, it's overused cliche now, but it's the economy stupid. No matter what election, outside of Vietnam and maybe even a little bit of Iraq, although if it wasn't for the collapse of the economy, I'm talking to one of my pollster friends, I don't even know if Obama would have won in 2008. But this country has a problem if you don't inform them. We lost Air America, and if the nation had people like you and Estelle and Katrina and everybody else on the air, along with myself and a whole bunch of others, Hartman, etc., every day in every market, it'd be a whole different story. You can explain about Ms. Harris. Another thing about this, and I don't want to go all over the place because there's only so much time, but one thing that really annoys me now, looking back at it, if Harris would have been the nominee and chosen in March in a primary, or even selected as they did, but she had a lot of time to talk to people and to tell people. Now, it may well have gone for naught, because I don't know if the American people are ready for a woman president. Twice they said no. Qualified people in both cases. Harris is much better communicated than Ms. Clinton. Still couldn't work. Joe Biden got a lot more votes. And again, you could say the pandemic and all that, but he's a white male. There's so many things to unpack here, but I just sense that we have to almost an overhaul of how we communicate and how the Democratic Party moves forward, John. I think this is, as it's not winning, it's not losing the states that Mondale did in '84, but I think it's the same uphill road forward. Your view on that?
It may even be harder in some ways. Because in 1984 you had the excuse, be it good or bad, that Reagan was he was a masterful communicator, and he was, even if you disagreed with him on the issues, in the eyes of many Americans, very appealing figure, right? You don't have that with Trump. 55% of Americans said he's too extreme. His approval numbers are in the tank. He's not a popular guy, yet he won the presidency. What he did here is something that's very standard in politics, and you have to understand that, and understand that it will happen again and again and again, no matter who you nominate, a man or a woman, no matter what their background. The Republicans are going to attack with everything they've got. They're going to go at your strengths and your weaknesses, and they went after Harris viciously. And their goal was to take a woman who, when she stepped in, actually saw her ratings go up, and then they poured tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars into attacks that brought her ratings down. That then made the opening for Trump to get those votes, right? Because the only way he was going to win votes is if people disliked both candidates a lot and then opted for one, because that one was sending an economic message that somehow, or a social message that somehow connected with him. And where I think the gap here is that the Harris campaign did not give people, it's not about fighting back on the negatives and stuff like that, but it's also giving people enough that if, all things being equal, you dislike both candidates because there's been so many negatives, what are you offering that gets the vote at the end of the day? And in my opinion, in this campaign, yes, it was very important to talk about abortion rights. That was a vital thing for Harris. Yes, it was very important for her to talk about a host of other issues that she made central, and talk about Trump as a bad player. But I think there needed to be much more of an economic message. And then, frankly, for young people, because she lost a lot of traction on campuses, I think there needed to be at least some acknowledgement of the deep anger over Gaza and the sense that this country's on the wrong side of that issue. I think there had to be. I do. I think there also had to be an economic vision that said to young people, look, elect this ticket, and things are going to be immediately better in your life, i.e. lowering college costs, finding other ways to get you, kind of up the ladder. And that needed to be a very targeted message. I don't think it was as targeted as it needed to be. And I think they spent way too much time with Liz Cheney.
Way too much time. It was ridiculous. I mean, to bring her on the road for what? What does she do in Wisconsin? You're
nuts.
There.
It was nuts.
What, she got 10 votes?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Talking with John Nichols here on the Jeff Santos Show. Yeah.
I'll go so far, Jeff, as to say there's an outside chance that she may have actually done more harm than good.
Yeah. I mean, she's a war hawk. I mean, Trump was right in that analogy. He didn't have to go into the idea of killing her, with 8 guns or whatever the hell he talked about.
Horrid. But I mean, the things he said were horrid, but that you acknowledge is awful, and you recognize that Trump's on the wrong side of things, but you still question, is Liz Cheney the person you want to put out front? If you're challenged, now, I know they wanted to attract Republican leaning women, stuff like that. They didn't do very well on that, but they had a much bigger chance to attract young working class voters of all backgrounds, both in college and out. And I just don't think there was enough energy put into that.
I mean, just think about this. Last night I was watching, and I thought, that I didn't give this any thought, but all those people in line, they might have been there to vote for Jill Stein. They might have been there to vote, for Trump. Who knows? But a lot of the young people were engaged. Maybe they were all, 90% of them were for Miss Harris. But the fact is that they were engaged, and and the Harris campaign ignored them. And frankly, Biden did too. Do you agree with me that if Biden would have left in February, we would have been in a better situation?
A little bit better, not a lot better. I believe Biden needed to leave in February of 2023. He needed to get out of the way so there could be a primary contest. And Harris she probably would have won that because of the advantages of the vice presidency and other things, but she needed to win that, right? And that would have been good for her because the process, the time traveling around America, you introduced, where did America get to know Barack Obama? In the fall of 2008 or in the winter and spring and summer of 2007 and 2008, I mean, the answer is, of course, it's in the primaries. And so I think Biden needed to stand down earlier. I have great respect for the man. I agree with him on many
I do
issues,
too.
but I think he's wrong on some other issues. And
he was
I
advised
think
by
he's very
family wrong, by other people. I mean, they went in with this idea, and I hope this never happens again. And I made a comment, and again, there's some good people in the White House. I'm not trying to criticize all of them, but they had this stupid idea because Trump was everywhere that they wanted to hide him. Don't have him out there all the time, and then put him out at 2:00 in the afternoon, 1:00 Central, and and bury him, and then hope that somebody in an inbox, some 22-year-old, is going to put it in an inbox, and all of a sudden that's going to generate interest. There's no follow up, and of course there's no talk radio to follow it up. It's all right wing, and and MSNBC during the day and CNN during the day is mushy middle, and he doesn't go on at night because he's not around at night. So I mean that whole thing to me was a disaster in a lot of ways in terms of communication. So this has to be a tremendous change, John. Would you agree?
Totally agree. Look, I mean, I would go so far as that the change is, look, I think it's going to have to operate on a lot of levels. And this is sort of the big deal on this, maybe the biggest deal of all. You need a new generation of people and people who are coming from the outside to move into positions of authority in the Democratic Party.
Yes.
I'll give you a good example. Wisconsin didn't end up perfectly. Harris did not win Wisconsin, although she did pretty well. I mean, she lost by about 30,000 votes here. They came close. They did a lot better than in a lot of other places. But Tammy Baldwin actually won re-election in Wisconsin.
Yes, I saw that. And Slotkin just got announced.
The one senator. What's that?
And Slotkin just got announced by CNN as winning the race in Michigan, which is a good
it looks like
too.
Slotkin's going to pull it off in Michigan, and Casey's still looking tough, and even Rose is looking a little tough in Nebraska, or in Nevada. I apologize. But what I would say is that in Wisconsin, Ben Wickler, who's the chair of this party, is actually, he's in his 40s, and he understands a lot of the techniques for mounting a new kind of campaign. Again, they didn't pull it off, and you can say, well, he didn't win for Harris, so take it for what you will. But what I would suggest is I've seen people who are pretty skilled at doing politics in the 21st century. Now, that doesn't mean that you've got to be 30 years old or 20. You could be 70, right? But you do have to understand the dynamics of, kind of where our politics is going, how we communicate, building out a new communication structure that does include radio. It does include social media, a little bit of TV and cable too, but at the end of the day, this is a really challenging circumstance that we're talking about. And I think that's going to require new leadership. I look at people like Ro Khanna at AOC, who I think did a very good job on a lot of the campaigning this season. And I just think they have to step up. I think they want to step up, but the party has to make room for them.
And it could be others too. I mean, Crockett in Texas is another good one. We can go on to the line.
There's so many capable people coming up.
Yeah.
And I think this is a point that Bernie, Greg Casar in Texas is really good. This is a point that Bernie Sanders has made a lot over the years. He's really tried to drive this home, which is that the Democratic Party has to be open to the people who want to come into the Democratic Party and who want to make it into something more and better than what its current leadership has done. Right.
I know he didn't win last night, but this guy Osborne, right? The guy that ran as an independent.
Yeah, he ran a night.
The Democrats should be all over him. It should be, I know he's not perfect, but that kind of working class guy who really, likes to take the money out of politics, as we talked about, would be. They have to look at. They got to communicate with working class white men. They've been awful for 30 years.
Well, but it's not just white men. Remember, take a look.
No, I mean, I agree. There's more. I'm just saying in particular.
But what I'm saying is that I think you can take the word white right out of that equation. Just say working class men.
Right. Latino, 54% yesterday voted for Trump.
I know.
Latino men.
This is really tough stuff. And so I think that where we get to here is a reality that the Democratic Party just needs to recognize that there is a broad, multiracial, multi-ethnic working class in this country, and there are some issues that they have in common They would like to be paid more. So raise the minimum wage. They would like to be
bring out Bernie
the union
with Vice President Harris. He was apt. He did his oon thing, but why did we keep him? The distant, give him the Heisman. Keep them together. I want to make
what
a quick
the hell
call.
Kind of campaign are you? What the hell kind of campaign? What the heck kind of campaign are you running? If you appear more times as a Democratic candidate for president with Liz Cheney than with Bernie Sanders.
Exactly. I love it. You can say hell on this show. You're right.
I know, but I'm caught.
No. I'm glad you're showing the passion, because that's what John Nichols is. That's who you are. You're polite. But the point is that we need people to sort of, speak their minds, and we need more of that. You do it, but we need more from, the people in Washington who got to get out of the bloody city. Another swear word. Okay.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Stephen, it's on a swear word.
Only swear word in some neighborhoods of
some neighborhoods
of Dublin and London.
Yes, yeah. Stephen in East Bay, California. Welcome to the show, my friend. You're next with John Nichols here on the Jeff Santos Show. Go ahead, sir. Stephen? G-Man, we have Stephen there?
Jeff, I'm here now.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me, Jeff?
You're next with John Nichols here on the Jeff Santos Show.
Okay, I was muted. Okay, let me just lay it down for you guys. First of all, what John just said, we need something nice, John. I need that passion from you every single day. Why? Because when you have that
Steve,
passion,
could you take that TV off or radio off in the background? We're getting some feedback.
Radio, I'm in my car, Jeff.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So basically what I'm saying is that when John is having that passion, he's speaking the truth. That's number one. Right. Number two, I don't want another Bubba conservative white guy to run for president. I don't care what color or skin, whatever. But I just need a person who can speak to working class people. John Edwards, before he got that $100.25 haircut, he was great. I need someone like that who is a good listener. And to John's point, okay, why in the world are you pushing the most popular senator? That was ridiculous. John, I have a question for you. Sorry. Who is Harris? Because I don't think they're going to change. Because unless you go and ask them face to face, they need to be challenged. I don't see anyone else. And lastly, before you answer my question, John, sorry, the Ro Khannas, the OC, they're great, but they don't have passion to speak the truth. I love them, but I want someone to go, you got to match Trump's energy with, you got to match his energy. He doesn't give a bleep, so we don't have to give a bleep, but we can't be too nice. We're going to get stepped over time and time again. Schumer, he fast-tracked all Trump's judges. No one's talking about that. Anyway, so I'm sorry. I'll stop talking.
Thank you, Stephen. No, I appreciate your passion and understand your frustration. John, go right ahead.
No, I think these are really good points. And look, here's an interesting thing that happened during the campaign. Gavin Newsom, who I don't agree with on everything. In fact, I've got plenty of problems with Gavin Newsom. But the fact of the matter is, he went out there and kind of made a big deal of, really shredding the Republicans. And Trump especially, but a lot of Republicans had a lot of issues. And I think there were other people who want to do that. I do think we have to, although I...
Thank you, John Nichols. Unfortunately, we got to run.
I think we have to analyze all that. Yep.
Okay. I agree. Thank you, John. Appreciate you. We'll be right back, folks.
Take care. Appreciate you, brother. Take care.
All the best. Thanks, John Nichols.
Jeff? Jeff?
The Jeff Santos Show is brought to you by Mass Peace Action. With over 9,000 supporters in the state, MPA uses the power of grassroots organizing to end war, create a more just foreign policy, and cut wasteful Pentagon spending to support the needs of the American people, like healthcare, education, infrastructure, and the environment. 20 years of war is long enough. To become a member or learn more, visit masspeaceaction.org. Don't wish for peace, work for it.
You don't have to wait for amazing deals on a new floor. Get spring Black Friday deals right now at Lumber Liquidators Flooring. This week, save up to 35% on gorgeous hardwood and waterproof vinyl floors. Plus, we can arrange for installation by professional, independent contractors. And with special financing, you can get started today. These are the floors homes are built on. Lumber Liquidators Flooring.
I'm Rich Rosario. 1 in 4 heart attack survivors will have another cardiovascular event. Award-winning author and American Heart Association volunteer Dr. Nisa Goldberg explains the hidden risks.
Many people don't realize that managing hidden risks like untreated high blood pressure, unhealthy eating habits, and poor medication adherence may reduce your risk for having another heart attack.
The American Heart Association's Secondary Heart Attack Prevention Initiative, sponsored by Bayer, reminds you to follow your doctor's recommendations to help reduce your risk factors.
Take your medication as prescribed. Certain medicines like aspirin can lower your risk of another cardiac event. Aspirin is not appropriate for everyone, so be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen. It's important to understand your medications and take them correctly. Manage risk factors like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. Quit smoking, eat healthier, and get active.
Learn more ways to thrive after a heart attack at heart.org/oneisenough.
Lebanon has called for Israel to immediately halt its ongoing military actions. Actions, Israel says, target the Iran-backed Hezbollah to prevent the collapse of Lebanon's healthcare infrastructure and avert a humanitarian crisis similar to Gaza, say Lebanese and international medical officials.
According to Lebanon's Health Minister Dr. Firas Abiad, Israel has breached international humanitarian law by targeting hospitals, healthcare facilities, and medical personnel, resulting in the deaths of 178 health workers so far. Joseph Eckerson reporting.
An otherwise smooth election day across the country was disrupted in several battleground states Tuesday by a wave of bomb threats and unfounded allegations of misconduct from former President Donald Trump.
Although the bomb threats in parts of Arizona, Georgia, and Pennsylvania were later confirmed to be hoaxes, they led to evacuations and extended hours at some polling sites. Threats were reported throughout the day at polling places in 3 metro Atlanta counties, which have large Democratic populations, continuing into the evening at polling sites and election offices as ballots were being tallied. Kyle Norris reporting.
The 2024 presidential election has highlighted the depth of divisions within the country as candidates contended with a political realignment shaped by factors like gender, class, and age, all under the shadow of ongoing misinformation and threats of violence.
Not since 1968, when racial tensions in the Vietnam War created a divided electorate, has the split been so stark. However, some of the most notable findings this year may be the most apparent. Just over 4 in 10 young voters backed Trump, up from about 1/3 in 2020. This shift has contributed to a significant reconfiguration of the presidential battleground map. Kevin Sanders reporting.
This is the latest news headlines.
Japan successfully launched a defense satellite on its new H-3 rocket, aiming to enhance military operations and communications amid the country's strategic shift towards greater military capability as regional tensions rise.
As part of its 2022 security strategy, Japan is accelerating its military development, including increased regional defense involvement due to growing threats from China, North Korea, and Russia. The H-3 No. 4 rocket was launched from Tanegashima Space Center on a southwestern island, with all operations reportedly proceeding smoothly. Liam White reporting.
An Ohio jury has found former Columbus police officer Adam Coy guilty of the 2020 fatal shooting of Andre Hill, an unarmed black man.
Coy, 48, was convicted on charges of murder, felonious assault, and reckless homicide in the death of Hill, 47. The verdict was announced by Common Pleas Court Judge Stephen L. McIntosh around noon local time, who then revoked Coy's $1 million bond. Coy was taken into custody and now faces a potential life sentence without parole, with sentencing set for November 25th. Lawrence Keller reporting.
A bus that was overcrowded and reportedly in poor condition veered off the road in northern India, plunging into a deep gorge and killing at least 36 people, with several others injured, according to officials.
The incident took place in Uttarakhand's Almora district, with the bus reportedly carrying around 60 passengers, said Deepak Rawat, a senior state government official. Although earlier estimates put the number of passengers at 42, which matches the bus's capacity, the final count revealed a much higher occupancy. Benjamin Wright reporting.
And that's the latest news headlines with Alan Edwards.
Are you living with pain? I was after a nasty fall. I got relief with 1 hour pain relief. I'm Barry Yarkoni, president, and here's Lisa, a Marine who was injured in Iraq.
After surviving an explosion, I was on horrible painkillers for lingering head, shoulder, back, and knee pain. But I hated the dangers and side effects. My friend told me about 1 hour pain relief, and now I'm off the drugs.
1 hour pain relief is the result of 15 years of research on an amazing extract from hops, the plant used to flavor beer.
Whether your pain is from an injury or just aging, you get safe, all-day relief in less than 1 hour.
We're so sure you'll love 1 hour pain relief too that we'll send you a 1-week trial for just a small shipping charge. Call 800-269-9500 right now. That's 800-269-9500. There's no gimmicks, no obligation, no automatic shipments. Stop living with pain. Call 800-269-9500 for your 1-week trial or visit onehourpainrelief.com. That's 800-269-9500.
Hi, I'm Karen, owner of Lone Star Transfer. If you are a timeshare owner, getting out is probably a top priority. And now that annual maintenance fees are coming due, this ongoing burden and expense is at the top of your list. Thankfully, we can help. Let us do for you what we have done for thousands of others across the country. Our process is done legally, ethically, and quickly. Lone Star Transfer has a 99% success rate and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. We are a family-owned business and will personally make sure your experience is a pleasant one. Don't let another day go by with maintenance fees taking your hard-earned money. Give us a call for a no-obligation consultation at 844-284-4863. That's 844-284-4863. Or online at LoneStarTransfer.com. That's LoneStarTransfer.com.
Live. This is the Jeff Santos Show on the Revolution Radio Network. Rebuilding America. Together. Investing, activism, and supporting the middle class. Now, here's Jeff.
It is hour 2 of the Jeff Santos Show, and welcome to coming to you live from the South Coast here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Day after, what a horrific night for the Democratic Party, horrific night for the nation, and probably the world, because it has implications internationally. We'll talk to both Brian Garvey and our good friend Larry Korb coming up at 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific about just that. Our next guest is the best labor writer in the country, bar none. Harold Meyerson is the editor at large of the American Prospect. Been a great contributor to the Jeff Santos Show. He joins us on video from Washington, D.C., and look forward to talking to him right now. As we can bring him in, G-Man, that would be great. Here he is, live from Washington, D.C., Harold Meyerson. Harold, great to have you on this day after. It's if you're a progressive, as we both are, it's a pretty miserable day after. And what looked like yesterday, up until about 9 or 10 o'clock, I was thinking this is going to be a great historic moment for the country, and one we can move forward with progressive ideas and move forward. Except it was, I think, a combination of 2010 and 2016 combined. And, and it gives you an awful, because I think back in 16, we didn't know how bad Trump could be. We lost 2010, and we knew right away that the end of the Obama vision was going to be done, even though he would get some things done. Now, I don't know. What is your emotions? What is your thoughts from last night after hopefully a few hours of rest?
Yeah, 3 hours sleep. And that did not make me feel any better. No, this was a tragedy that we're going to see unfolding at least for the next 4 years. Republicans will control the Senate, which means that all of Trump's appointments, both to cabinet departments and agencies and federal judgeships, will go through, because those don't require 60 votes; they only require 51. Right now, there are going to be 52 Republican senators, and that total could go as high as 55, depending on some races that still haven't been decided. Nor is it clear at this juncture which party will control the House. If the Democrats manage to take it, it's only going to be by 1 or 2 seats, in which case no one had better die or even think about going to the bathroom when there's a pending vote.
Exactly.
But, they can at least, if they do have that, tiny majority, they can at least compel the Republicans on all of the tax questions which are going to come up, because the 2017 Trump tax cuts are about to expire. They can have some clout, but if they don't take the House, and I'd say it's a 50-50 proposition right now, these guys can run amok, and running amok seems to be, the one thing that Republican Congress is eminently capable of.
They're very good at it.
And basically doing essentially whatever Trump asks them to do. I mean, there's no Mitt Romney is gone. There's no John McCain, as there was at the outset of Trump's first term as president. I think he will have a carte blanche to dismantle whatever he wants to dismantle, and reward his rich buddies to the considerable extent that he wants to reward his rich buddies, foremost among whom is he himself, and with Elon Musk running a close second.
Yeah. Talking with Harold Meyerson here on the Jeff Santos Show. Phone number to join us, 833-545-5333. You can email me, Jeff, with a J, at revolutionboston.com. We're going to be on the air tomorrow and Friday, and we'll make some announcements about our shows and where we go after that tomorrow and Friday as well. This is a difficult time for people who are in my industry and yours. Newspaper industry, the magazine industry is not what it is. It's been basically defrocked, defanged, whatever you want to use in front of the word D, after the word D. But it is what it is. We saw what happened with Bezos the other day in the LA Times. And look, I mean, if we had talk radio across this country amplifying Miss Harris, particularly if we would have done it over the last year, we could have won yesterday. But we don't have that. And the fact that you can take a convicted felon, I'll give Tom Hartman credit for this. He said, why is it, besides The Guardian, international paper with roots in the UK, the only ones to say rapist wins White House? No other American newspaper said that. And that's truth. Convicted. Felon. Never mentioned in the final month by any friends of ours at CNN or at MSNBC. And I like MSNBC. This is
racist and misogynist.
Right.
The guy is a genius at playing on male insecurity and blaming others. Others can be women. It can be the so-called feminized Democratic Party. It can be immigrants who are apparently responsible for everything that's wrong with America. He touches a nerve. He touches a nerve there. And Kamala Harris was dealt what, in hindsight, looks like a pretty impossible task to perform. If Joe Biden had agreed a year ago, or even 9 months ago, not to run,
calling for it for over a year and a half.
that that might have made a difference. For one thing, there would then have been Democratic primaries. I think inherently, Joe Biden's vice president, whoever that person is, would have a tougher time establishing distance and becoming a change candidate than, let's say, any number of governors who, under those circumstances, would probably have entered primaries. But withdrawing when he did, really, Kamala Harris was the only plausible person who could step in. She did, and I think she did a pretty good job. But that was not enough.
Not enough at all. Again, the phone number to join is 833-545-5333. Not only, you could have done it after 22. This idea, and this is where Washington gets it wrong. I think there's a guy, Rosenthal, who came in and talked about, the red wave never happened in the fall of 22. Yes, but let's just find out what did happen. We lost the House. That means the whole Biden agenda went down the drain. You couldn't do anything. So, we didn't get creamed, but we still lost. And, there's only a razor thin in the Senate on top of it. So, we have to think in a bigger way. I mean, Lawrence O'Donnell last night pointed out something. If you had just a popular vote as opposed to this cockamamie electoral college, connected to slavery back 200 years ago, you might have had 7 million people from the state that you grew up in, additional 7 million people voting, because it would have made a difference. Same thing in New York, in greater Chicago and Boston and all these other places. But we don't have it. So they say, well, we're going to win anyway, so who cares? And, again, all these things that we need. And I just think that it is a must for whoever is running for president in 2028, if there's an election. If there's an election that counts, somebody pointed out, there's there are elections in Russia and other parts of the world, but you know who the winner is. It's like wrestling. Of course, that's, a favorite pastime of Mr. Trump. But I tell you have to put all these things. And now we're going to have to expand the Supreme Court because they're going to have a chance to do a couple of more. And if we don't expand it, to get some, normalcy, then you're not going to be able to deal with that either. Hell, I mean, it's all these things, and the electoral college, expand the Supreme Court, Puerto Rico, if they want it, and of course, D.C. need to have statehood. You got to be able to do all these reforms as fast as possible, if you can get in.
No, it's going to be difficult, and I think increasingly a number of progressives really see the Constitution as a flawed document, not just for the Electoral College, but for the Senate, which is one of the most radically unrepresentative bodies conceived by the mind of man, as the saying used to go. There are 70 Californians for every one Wyoming resident, but Wyoming has equal representation to California in the Senate. The authors of the Constitution were not lowercase d Democrats. They didn't really like the idea of popular elections. That's why senators were not popularly elected until the Constitution was amended, I think, in 1913. We are stuck with what was a somewhat enlightened document for the late 18th century. But in the 21st century, it doesn't make much sense. And, you had a whole slew of new nations adopting new constitutions when the Eastern Bloc and the Soviet Union collapsed. None of them really opted quite for the kind of electoral representation that we have. All of them viewed it as, you're kidding. This is like 18th century stuff. So, so we have problems atop the problems and the that are uppermost in mind today, and will be, I'm afraid, for some time now.
Yeah, unfortunately the case. And as my 92-year-old mom says, I don't think it's going to be a long time until we get a woman president too. It is sad. Okay, let's go to the phones. 833-545-5333. I believe Tom in L.A., place that Harold knows very well. You are next. No, it's John? Okay. So let's go to John in Minnesota. You're next with Harold Meyerson.
Yeah, I don't think that it really was Kamala Harris's, being the candidate. She was an excellent candidate, but she really didn't get the support that she needed from her own party. If she ran the whole, time, the whole year, instead of having this person who basically didn't look like he was, really that interested anyway, and demanded that we all, support him, even though he was, kind of doddering and old and just disinterested, didn't want to come out in the evenings, didn't have the energy. I don't think that's ageism. Bernie Sanders runs around like somebody half his age. But it demands, politics today, it demands a lot of energy. And if you're not, if you just sort of like Sleepy Joe, forget it. You're not going to, get it. Even Donald Trump has more energy than he does. I mean, he's not very bright, or he never says anything except hateful things. And I think that, this is going to be our fascist period in our history. And misogyny is very much part of that. Unfortunately, we didn't appeal to the working class, and we haven't for like 45 years. We were working toward it, but you can't just go around the edges. I mean, people are hurting.
I'm going to hold you there, John, because you mentioned something that I want to get to our great labor writer.
Go ahead.
You've got to communicate with the working class. No, thank you, John. We're not doing that. We not only do we need the radio stations, like we had with Air America, which was completely, bungled when it started and was run by corporate right wingers and they sold it to the corporate right wing salespeople. I saw it firsthand when I worked for it, 04 and 06. But Harold, talk to me about how the party really has lost their way. Not only working class whites, working class Latinos. 54% voted for Trump last night. Harold, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, well, the Latino vote has always really reflected Latinos' economic concerns more than anything else. And this goes back to all the elections I was covering when the Latino vote was a rising share of the California electorate back when I was at the LA Weekly in the 1990s. And, the Democrats under Biden were pivoting, towards a more working class orientation, but it'll take a lot more than that. And I would add, that when the percentage of the private sector workforce that is unionized is down to 6%, that means that American workers don't have a lot of agency, a lot of countervailing power to the economic forces that they're compelled to live under. And in the absence of that kind of option, that kind of power, a guy can come along and say, well, look, I mean, I'm going to solve your problems by getting rid of the immigrants who are competing for your jobs, even though the jobs immigrants hold tend not to be ones which, the citizenry holds. But, it just opens the field for that. And, governments across the world of any political persuasion have fallen like a row of dominoes in the last couple of years because of global price rises, which are the result of supply chain disruptions, the war in Ukraine, and such. And the Biden-Harris administration has now joined that list, which is kind of ideologically across the board. I mean, the British Tories didn't survive either, but this is a real problem, and the American working class is quite aware that the kind of decent working class job that didn't pay that much less than jobs for college educated professionals 50 and 60 years ago pay a hell of a lot less now. And 50, 60 years is a long time to build up this sense of grievance. And we saw that, among other things, we saw that last night.
We did indeed. I just to warn this to our good friend back there in Boca Raton, Florida, G-Man, I am going to send a cut to you. I don't know if we'll make it in time for Harold's segments, but I interviewed Maxine Waters at the Democratic Convention, Harold. And she said to me, without much prompting, because, one of the things we got to do is amplifying, if Harris gets in, Harris's message, and now in the campaign. Yes, I will be, G-Man. And to me, here's the issue. She knows, as an African-American woman from South Central Los Angeles, that we need to amplify the message. But why is that not consistent amongst her colleagues, Harold?
Good question. Well, Maxine has been at the forefront of economic fights, no less than civil rights fights, which of course are, have a great deal of overlap for a very long time, and has seen her own district go from overwhelmingly black to actually majority Latino, and that those the problems of economic as well as de jure marginalization have persisted across that demographic change. So she's acutely aware of this stuff, and she's always been acutely aware of this kind of stuff. Not all of her colleagues are or appreciate the depth of just discontent and frustration that these voters across racial lines are experiencing.
No, it is really difficult, and we need to do a much, much better job. G-Man, let me know if you get that email. Play that cut from Maxine Waters. If not, we'll do it in the next segment. Okay. We'll see if we can get that before you roll. Harold, talk to me a little bit about, how we move forward. Let's just say that, the Democrats do win the House. Jeffries would become speaker again. It's an identity politics thing. It's great that he'd be the first African-American speaker, but again, to me, he's got to be, somebody who knows how to hold the fort, and push on the Senate and obviously on Trump and his team. I mean, do you think that they have a game plan to do this? Because they probably thought they'd be working with Harris. Your quick thoughts on that?
Well, look, there's a lot of calling audibles going on right now because this is not the situation that was anticipated. I think Jeffries is a smart pol, if nothing else. So, if they get that chance, I'm sure he will pursue it aggressively. But if they don't, there's a real question. I mean, there's some scuttlebutt among Senate Democrats about maybe someone will challenge Chuck Schumer after the rather dismal performance on the Senate side for Democrats. I tend to think that given the way blue states are going to endeavor to oppose what Trump will do, that we're going to be looking at Democratic governors, maybe as the leaders of the Democratic Party over the next few years, maybe the Gretchen Whitmers and Gavin Newsom's, and I'm not sure who else, Josh Shapiro's, maybe even Josh Stein, who was elected in North Carolina yesterday, or Andy Beshear in Kentucky.
I like Beshear. He could be somebody to go there. I'm gonna ask G-Man to play this quick cut for you, Harold, before we leave, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Go ahead, G-Man. This is Maxine.
What hopefully the Harris-Walz ticket will have is that you get more radio stations, whether Soros buying them or whatever, but the amplification of their message. How important?
Well, I think you're absolutely right, because a lot of good things happen, and Biden did a lot of great things, but the American public doesn't know about it.
Best domestic president since LBJ?
The best, the best. And I have the greatest respect for him. But you're absolutely right. Our messages don't get out, and we've got to put some time and effort into it. We have places in this country where they don't hear from any progressives, they don't hear from different thinking. They're listening to the Trump message.
Exactly.
And so,
over and
over again. That's right, that's right. So, you know, you're absolutely right about that.
I would love to talk to you off air and your team about maybe ways in which we can do that, because we're trying to get right now into Michigan and Wisconsin and swing states where there are very few alternative messages to the.
Well, you know what?
Harold, you're 30 seconds.
Oh, you're right. And, you know, Jeff, you were talking very early on in the Biden presidency about Biden's failure to get out there and make the case for what were his very good programs. And we know now that's related to his, you know, his age and his deterioration, but you can't sell a program if you're not selling. And Biden.
The Jeff Santos Show is brought to you by Mass Peace Action. With over 9,000 supporters in the state, MPA uses the power of grassroots organizing to end war, create a more just foreign policy, and cut wasteful Pentagon spending to support the needs of the American people, like healthcare, education, infrastructure, and the environment. 20 years of war is long enough. To become a member or learn more, visit masspeaceaction.org. Don't wish for peace, work for it.
You don't have to wait for amazing deals on a new floor. Get spring Black Friday deals right now at Lumber Liquidators Flooring. This week, save up to 35% on gorgeous hardwood and waterproof vinyl floors. Plus, we can arrange for installation by professional, independent contractors. And with special financing, you can get started today. These are the floors homes are built on. Lumber Liquidators Flooring.
Are you living with pain? I was, after a nasty fall. I got relief with 1 hour pain relief. I'm Barry Yarkoni, president, and here's Lisa, a Marine who was injured in Iraq.
After surviving an explosion, I was on horrible painkillers for lingering head, shoulder, back, and knee pain. But I hated the dangers and side effects. My friend told me about 1 hour pain relief, and now I'm off the drugs.
1 hour pain relief is the result of 15 years of research on an amazing extract from hops, the plant used to flavor beer.
Whether your pain is from an injury or just aging, you get safe, all-day relief in less than 1 hour.
We're so sure you'll love 1 hour pain relief too that we'll send you a 1-week trial for just a small shipping charge. Call 800-269-9500 right now. That's 800-269-9500. There's no gimmicks, no obligation, no automatic shipments. Stop living with pain. Call 800-269-9500 for your 1-week trial or visit onehourpainrelief.com. That's 800-269-9500.
I'm Rich Rosario. 1 in 4 heart attack survivors will have another cardiovascular event. Award-winning author and American Heart Association volunteer Dr. Nisa Goldberg explains the hidden risks.
Many people don't realize that managing hidden risks like untreated high blood pressure, unhealthy eating habits, and poor medication adherence may reduce your risk for having another heart attack.
The American Heart Association's Secondary Heart Attack Prevention Initiative, sponsored by Bayer, reminds you to follow your doctor's recommendations to help reduce your risk factors.
Take your medication as prescribed. Certain medicines like aspirin can lower your risk of another cardiac event. Aspirin is not appropriate for everyone, so be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen. It's important to understand your medications and take them correctly. Manage risk factors like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. Quit smoking, eat healthier, and get active.
Learn more ways to thrive after a heart attack at heart.org/oneisenough.
Supporting the middle class. This is the Jeff Santos Show.
$33 past the hour. It is the Jeff Santos Show that you are tuned into. We're going to be talking with Larry Korb and Brian Garvey in a couple of minutes, but I wanted to read something that Greg Palast just sent along as a general email. He goes, here's something you won't read elsewhere. In the last presidential election, according to the official count of the Federal Elections Assistance Commission, 2.7 million provisional ballots were rejected. Whose ballots? If you're Black, Hispanic, or Asian American, the chance you were shunted to one of these provisional ballots is 300% higher than if you're white. How many Black ballots were thrown in the electoral dumpster? You know, that's something we got to consider. That's another piece of voter suppression. We're going to get into that tomorrow, and we'll get into it on Friday as well, folks, here on the Jeff Santos Show. Keith Ellison is scheduled to be with us. That interview was booked before last night, so I'm not sure. We'll have to verify that. We are going to talk to our good friend Herb Boyd, of course, tomorrow, and we'll get his perspective on that, and a couple of others too. Try to reach out to our good friend in Wisconsin, Earl Ingram, as well. All right. Let's. I think, G-Man, do we have both Larry Korb and Brian Garvey ready to go? Okay. All right. So let me just say this as we wait for Brian Garvey and Larry to get connected here. Vice President Harris is speaking at Howard as we speak here, and there is an opportunity, to listen to her. The C-SPAN will have the speech a little bit later for you. This way you can stay with us for the next half hour. It's sad that she has to make this speech. She ran a very good campaign. It's just that, the circumstances she would put in for 3 months, the fact that Biden didn't do her any good, in sort of, giving her the chance to run a full primary, giving her a chance to, to have some more time to do this. It was all rushed. And frankly, he has to take responsibility for that. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. He's a very good president, as I was saying on that tape with Maxine Waters. But, the people around him, his family, the people who are in his inner circle should have had the responsibility to say, look, time to go, Joe. You don't have his fastball anymore. You can't get hitters out in the bottom of the ninth. You can't compete against Trump and his upcoming campaign. You just got to go. And they didn't. And that really cost us in the end. As John Nichols said, and Harold Meyerson agreed. Should have been out last year. Now we have Donald Trump coming up. And what does that mean internationally? So let's bring in our good friend via video from Boston. He is the Deputy Director of Mass Peace Action. And of course, our good friend, former Reagan Deputy Defense Secretary, U.S. Navy Captain, and our good friend, Mr. Larry Korb, joins us on the line from Washington, D.C. Gentlemen, it's great to have you with us on this very difficult day after a horrific election that now puts a convicted rapist and felon into the White House once again. And guardrails are gone. We may see Democrats, hopefully, fingers crossed, win the House, but even that is not necessarily enough to stop what could be, an alliance with Mother Russia, China, and a whole slew of other dictators around the world, including Orban and Modi in India. Brian, and there's going to be devastation. There has been already in Gaza. I don't know. I think for a lot of young people your age, they are very depressed today, very frustrated today. How do you view this in the scope of international issues? But you're also an American. Your thoughts?
Well, the message I sent out earlier today to our members and supporters was that the reaction to this election, the reaction to any election, there's always a temptation to to blame and to give up and to despair. And if you're on the winning side, to grandstand. And those are temptations that we should resist, as we have to resist now for the next 4 years. The advice that I'm giving to our supporters and members, and really that I would give to every one of your listeners now, is to get involved. Politics is not something that happens once every 2 or 4 years. It's something that happens every day. It's a lunch pail job. Yep. People got to roll up their sleeves and get involved. If you're interested in peace, I would suggest that people check out our organization, Massachusetts Peace Action, or their Peace Action affiliate locally. But if you're feeling frustrated, get involved. Be part of the solution. Find an organization that supports a cause that you care about, or a group that you feel is marginalized or threatened, and join it, because really only organization and collaboration is going to save us now.
No doubt. Larry Korb, you have seen some horrors in this country and what's going on when you came back from Vietnam, and of course the end of the Nixon era, and the election, the first time of Trump. How do you feel today? What is the impact here? We're hearing congratulations from Prime Minister in the UK and other leaders around the world, but I mean, this is not welcome news to most of democracy of the world, and the implications are massive. Your thoughts, Larry?
Well, they are. Now, one other thing that hasn't come up, the Republicans got control of the Senate.
Right.
What that means is Trump can put all of these bizarre, crazy guys and gals into positions of responsibility without the Senate checking them. And, when he came in the first time, he did get people from the establishment. General Kelly, for example, was put in there. And these are people, obviously, that are, tell you how bad it was. So you don't have that check. So he can have these people in there, and there'll be nobody to check Trump if he comes up with these sort of wild ideas that, could lead to large-scale war or undermining American position. The other thing is that you got to hope, and I'm an optimist, having been through a lot here, is basically that a lot of his talk he won't follow up on. I'll let Netanyahu do whatever he wants, but then you've seen him say, well, yeah, but there are other things that I don't want to do. I think I can get along with Putin, but if it doesn't turn out in a reasonable way, then he could come back and say, well, I tried, it's Putin's fault, which is fine, if you get that. So, yeah, I think that there are, we need to be concerned, and the House, if the Democrats get it, they can try and do something, or you can get Republican senators who really put the interest of the country first to prevent some of these things from happening, and people getting in there who have no business representing the United States and its interests around the world.
No doubt. Talking with Larry Korb and Brian Garvey here on the Jeff Santos Show. Phone number to join us, 833-545-5333. And G-Man, let me know who we have on the phone. Brian, as Larry is saying, maybe we can hope for the best, that, that there is some way to move an agenda that he can sign off on. And maybe if you give him credit, maybe you can fool him. He's not exactly a Rhodes Scholar, not even ROAD. My feeling here is that somebody has to, sort of manipulate the con man. And hopefully it's from our side to do it. I mean, I'm not naive. I mean, I'm not going to count on it happening, but we got to try all the things we possibly can, because, not only could he start World War III, he could end it as well. He could end the world. I mean, that's the power that he has as of January 20th. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that speaks to our need to really strengthen our institutions. You mentioned a lack of guardrails. That has been a concern for me for many years, even before Mr. Trump took office. If we live in a representative democracy, it doesn't really make much sense to me to have one man with his ability to push the red button and launch a nuclear war that you said could threaten the entire world and the entire human race. You're absolutely right when you say that. For me, that's a nuclear monarchy, if anything, and we need to think twice about the power that we want to give to the president of the United States, because we know that this country is capable of electing someone like Donald Trump, someone worse too. We can't give up because of the man in the office. We need to continue our advocacy and continue to pressure. You said manipulate, but if Trump wants to put his name on things that we would call victories, then we need to try and steer that administration in the right direction. We can't just give up for 4 years. We can't take a break. These issues are too urgent. They are too important for people to give up and say, I'm going to take my ball and go home. Now, this is time to dive in more than ever.
No, I mean, I think you understand it and you pegged it. And you are, one of the soldiers of peace, on the line for us, Brian. And, Larry and I would, back you 100%. I'm hoping that people understand, Larry, what Brian is saying and the importance of meshing the two. And I was watching, Harris's speech just a few minutes ago. It's now broken up, and a lot of people are crying. And I understand it's horrific. And she tried so hard in 3 months. Biden should have left, a year and a half ago. Would have made the whole situation a lot better. Probably would have made Gaza a lot better, because you would have had a primary possibly, and you would have had people talking about this, and it might have put more pressure on then if Harris was the nominee, to be able to get a better perspective, as opposed to this sort of, up until the Dearborn speech, didn't mention anything. And even that was really a little too late. But, how do you mount a defense? I mean, if they choose, I think his name is Gensler, the former ambassador, as Secretary of State. I mean, how do you work with him? Presumably, maybe if the Democrats get lucky and they win back the House, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee in the House, can put some pressure. But I don't know who they're going to have in the Senate. Maybe it's going to be another, puppet of Trump. What's that process look like, Larry, from your vantage point there in D.C.?
Well, we don't know. There's been such a turnover in both houses here, how it's going to work. The thing I worry about is all of the traditional, Republicans who would accept the same things you and Brian are talking about in terms of things to do. They all lost, so they left the party. Okay. I think if Kamala had won, you'd have seen Liz Cheney get some sort of job in her foreign policy establishment, which would then help them work, with the Congress. But I do worry, as I say, if you take a look, when he came in, he appointed people from the establishment. Didn't turn out too well. I'm not going to do that again. So I think, we really, really going to need some members of Congress to step up if it goes too far, if it gets, if they get out of line, because the Congress does have the power of the purse, and there are things that they can. The real thing I worry about is, foreign leaders like Putin, for example, who think now they can get away with a lot of stuff that previously they couldn't, because they would have been stopped by an American president. I mean, look at what Trump has been saying about Putin in the campaign. Is sort of like saying better things about him than about Vice President Harris.
I know. It's just it's disgusting, and that's where we are. I mean, I guess I'm just hoping for the best, but I think the Democrats have to win the House, and people like Susan Collins in Maine and Murkowski in Alaska, have to play key roles. I mean, it's going to be 52, I think, at the very least. Jackie Rosen of Nevada is and looks like in bad shape for her victory. We did get Slotkin and of course she's got some foreign policy creds, as well as Baldwin is staying put. Not sure what's going to happen with Casey, but in Pennsylvania. But we're going to need these Democrats to really push hard. Brian, what about the youth vote? Last night, I was excited to see a ton of people in line at Temple University in Philly and a lot of people in line at Penn State. And everybody's saying this is Obama 2.0 like it was in 08, where there's a huge landslide for the Democrats. I don't know how many of those people, and I don't know if you have any idea, that were there either voting for Jill Stein or voting for Donald Trump, because a lot of young people, voted last night, particularly in Pennsylvania, but I don't know how many of them voted for Harris.
I have not seen the splits yet based on demographics, how many of the youth vote came out and who they voted for. I will say, to return to my original point, there's always a temptation to blame the voters when people don't like the result.
It's all about information. You don't blame the individual voter.
I know you're not. I know you're not, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, no, because we don't have the amplification the right wing has. I mean, if you put in all the right wing media plus what Fox does and America Online, the other network, including Newsmax that the Republicans have, America One, and we would be fine. I mean, Harris would have won by 20 points if we had amplification. If we have what they had you can go into any city in this country. I know you know this, Brian, but 4 or 5 conservatives on, Monday through Friday, beating up Harris, beating up Biden. And Biden, of course, didn't do anything. He was going out at 2:00 in the afternoon, and sleeping.
Yeah, well,
I mean, you can't do this.
That may be because of his health, Jeff. So I don't think that we can.
Well, in that case, he should have resigned a year earlier.
Should have stepped aside earlier, perhaps. I think that's a very fair critique. But one thing I know that we've been saying on this show, and that I've been saying in a lot of places, is that if they wanted to beat Donald Trump, if VP Harris wanted to win last night, she had to be bold and clear. And I think that was a big problem. One thing that I've been asking people this morning was, well, even on a more basic level than that, one thing I've been asking folks is, do you know what her campaign slogan was? Not many people do, right? I think that may be why she lost, right? It's
well,
tough.
They had it. I don't think anybody knew what it meant.
Across. Yeah.
We're not going back. We're not going back to what?
Exactly. Yeah. It's especially when you've been part of the administration in charge for 4 years. That's a tough message. I think she got away from her early successful messaging on the economy. She spent too much time palling around with the Cheneys, trying to get the support of a demographic that I'm not sure really exists outside of the MSNBC panels. And when she returned to that economic message, I think it might have been too little, too late. There were a lot of good policies that she was proposing, but I don't think she highlighted them enough. You have to say that message 1,000 times before it gets through.
That's right.
And on Gaza as well, just not bold enough.
Well, the Gaza thing was a disaster. Disaster with Biden. It was a disaster with Biden not letting Harris take the next step. Let him be the bad guy. He wasn't going to run in the end in the last couple of months. John in Minneapolis, you're next with Larry Corbin, Brian Garvey. Go right ahead.
Yeah, Kamala Harris didn't turn out the vote. There was less voters out there voting than there was last time. And why is that? And I think it's because, hanging out with the Cheneys isn't going to turn out the working class vote. And that's the one that is alienated, disgruntled, and just has given up, I think. That's my opinion. And, I'm just guessing. I'm not an authority or anything, but that's what I think. They have done this over and over and over again, the Democratic Party, and I've been voting for them forever. And it's the same thing all the time, except here and there. Like, I'm lucky that I can really support my own representative, but I can tell you that money also is involved, and they tried to unseat her and spent it was just outrageous amounts of money, and it was on both ends, both for the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and it was the same investment banker from Long Island that was sending all this money into this district. I can tell if I would be choking in the paperwork that they sent to my house.
Thank you, John.
And
I
my
got to run, my
neighbor.
friend.
So,
I hear you.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
No.
Larry, your thoughts on what John had to say, and again, where we go from here.
Well, I think that's his first thing, that the turnout was lower than normal. People didn't seem to be worried as much about Trump this time as they did the other times. I mean, you remember his first two elections, he didn't get the majority, and he did this time. And I think that,
there's a lot of racism and sexism in this part too.
Yeah. The one good thing, and John sort of alluded to it, is that people didn't vote on foreign policy. And so if Trump tries to do any of these bizarre things, I think even the Republicans in Congress or the Senate are going to try and control him, because basically there's no political cost. Trump can't say, oh, well, I can do this because I made it a campaign slogan or people voted for me for this. I mean, people did not vote on, how long we should stay in aiding the Ukrainians or what should be our policy toward Hamas. Now, certain groups did, like the Arab Americans in the Midwest, but by and large, that was not an issue. So you got to think the members of the Congress, who, after all, are dedicating their lives and they're trying to do the right thing, particularly when it comes to protecting our national security, that they would stop up and say, wait a second, that's too far, and we're not going to allocate the money to do this.
I hope so. I wonder how many people who are elected by billionaires are going to actually do the right thing. And that's the problem. Guys, thank you so much. Not sure when the next time we'll talk to you, but I thank you for all your broadcasts, all your time you spent with us. Brian Garvey, Massachusetts Peace Action Deputy Director, Larry Korb, a hero, former U.S. Navy captain in Vietnam, and, of course, part of the Reagan administration. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. All right.
Okay, thanks for having us. Good luck. I hope the show goes on.
Thank you so much, Larry. Folks will be back tomorrow and again on Friday. We'll have some announcements coming up in the next 48 hours. I want to thank G-Man for producing this broadcast. Rocky, our great friends at Team Ally. Keep on fighting peacefully. My name is Jeff Santos. Right now, it's my time to say, I gotta go.